say you wanna watch a drama. You say you wanna watch a comedy. Well, you can watch it with your mama, or you can watch it with your daddy.
You'll even sit and watch it with your middle schooler, so you can come and talk around a water cooler. We're watching all day and all night.
Couch potatoes unite.
Whoa, whoa.
Couch potatoes unite.
Whoa, whoa. Couch potatoes unite.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! Which is based on a blog of the same name because it too shares DNA with a look-alike. In the podcast's case, though, I think it's safe to say we traded up. Uh-oh, possible foreshadowing. My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and we're checking out our website, couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like. For Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and the unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU, ! Hopes you've been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays, and as always we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panelists and I live lives behind our podcast, the episodes are published once per week. Subscribe to the blog or the podcast via iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, via Google Play, and now on Spotify to stay on top of brand new episodes. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows around the water cooler, including but not limited to Fuller House, Arrested Development, Jane the Virgin, Supernatural, Orange is the New Black, Gotham, the Marvel shows on Netflix, and Stranger Things. Plus new episodes are in the works, including revisits for Game of Thrones, iZombie, 13 Reasons Why, The Crown, American Horror Story, Grace and Frankie, The Good Place, Altered Carbon, Doctor Who, Schitt's Creek, Westworld, Riverdale. The DCTU series panel will catch up on the first 2 seasons of Black Lightning, and the Star Trek 50 Plus series will talk season 2 of The Next Generation. We'll be launching new panels covering the chilling adventures of Sabrina, Charmed, Outlander, the Breaking Bad universe, This Is Us, and the Orville. And because we look back at shows now past, we'll put out some musical stops for our crazy ex-girlfriend. We'll revisit one of the all-time and most-watched classic sitcoms, MASH. We'll consider the moral implications and quick cancellation of Dollhouse, and we'll travel through time and experience all sorts of identities with Quantum Leap. By the way, did you know that CPU also from time to time goes live? We've been live from bunkers, comedy shows, Comic-Cons, and game stores. Plus, we're planning more live appearances and other cool stuff, including in these quarantine times. So make sure you like or follow us at our Facebook page, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, or subscribe to the website, our YouTube channel, our Apple iTunes channel, our Stitcher Radio channel, or find us on Google Podcasts and now on Spotify. In the meantime, if you don't hear your show in this podcast format, fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we always seek new panelists. So if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello by finding us at any of those outlets I've mentioned. At the very least, stop by and leave us a thumbs up, comment, or review. We like feedback, the non-lethal kind, that is, and you'll get what I'm talking about in a moment. Today, we return to an interview feature on CPU, ! That we've introduced in the past couple of years. Our humble little podcast from Grand Rapids, Michigan has been going for about 5 years, and as always, we will be covering many more shows and introducing many more panels as time progresses. Yet, as probability might allow, there are also going to be times when we stop ongoing coverage of a show, mainly because not only are no new panelists interested in it anymore, but even the panelists who have been talking about it on this humble little podcast have lost interest too, for whatever reason. Has the show declined in quality? Has the story gone off the deep end? Has something happened that is so offensive to our intrepid viewer they cannot bring themselves to keep watching? A combination of several or all of these? Or is there a creative or unanticipated reason why our panelists do not want to keep going? You might have heard the phrase when referring to people who stop watching shows for some cataclysmic reason or over some keystone event, jumping the shark. To remind the listener, jumping the shark refers to when a TV show or something that was once popular no longer warrants the attention it has previously received, particularly when attempts at publicity only serve to highlight its relevance. The idiom, jumping the shark, is pejorative, most commonly used in reference to unsuccessful gimmicks for promoting something. It is similar to past its peak, but more specifically suggests an unwillingness to acknowledge the failing. Originally, the phrase was used to describe an episode of a television comedy with a gimmick or unlikely occurrence desperately attempting to keep viewers' interest. Moments labeled as jumping the shark are considered indications that writers have exhausted their focus, that the show has strayed irretrievably from an older and better formula, or that the series as a whole is declining in quality. Popularized by radio personality John Hine in the 1990s and early 2000s, the phrase derives from a scene in a fifth-season episode of the sitcom Happy Days in which the character Fonzie jumps over a shark while on water skis. This was deemed a ratings ploy, for it was outside the original thrust of the sitcom. Well, today we continue our Shark Jumpers Anonymous feature, wherein even though a show might have life left in it because of network renewal, our podcast panel simply does not have the interest to keep talking about it anymore. This series is an interview-style feature where panelists must answer pre-written questions to explain why they have stopped watching the show at hand, or why they haven't yet, if applicable. If there are any panelists left standing at the end of the interviews, they will have the opportunity to return to CPU a final time once the show is officially ended to reevaluate their decision to keep watching and to justify whether or not doing so was really worth it in the end. Our fourth show on the chopping block for today's episode is Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. CPU last covered this comic book adaptation following Season 5 in September of 2018. That's a year and a half ago. On this panel, the remaining constituent members, namely Jen and Micah, recorded several prior episodes about this show. In fact, Jen has been with this panel since the beginning, as we have talked about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. since the airing of the first season. For a detailed plot summary of the show, listen to the prior episodes via our feeds or our website. As our chief CP and main moderator assessed interest in Season 6, which is now the penultimate season of the series, our panel got together one last time to record our fourth group of Shark Jumpers Anonymous interviews. Who's still watching? Who made like the Fonz and jumped the shark? Well, keep listening.
My name is Jen, and I jumped the shark on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
My name is Micah, and I did not jump the shark watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
My name is Kylie, and I did not jump the shark watching Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Remind the listener, explain how you came to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., how'd you start, what kept you watching, that sort of thing.
Let me tell you, I was ready, I was waiting. This was not a friend had to recommend. I saw Avengers a little bit later than everybody else, but still, while it was in theaters, and coming off of that, I think that was the point where, like, the MCU, I think, shifted and became a real organism. And so everybody was buzzing, and I was buzzing. And then they were like, oh yeah, Joss Whedon, the guy who wrote that movie that has you feeling a glow, he is going to be writing for this TV series about just, like, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and, like, in between. And it takes place in universe for as long as that lasted. And so I was like, when this comes on ABC, I will be ready. I will be waiting with popcorn. I don't know if I actually ended up having popcorn, but at some point in the year, my memories will bring up the 8-second video of me filming the first title splash on the screen as that episode aired, and I was very, very excited about that show, and I've been watching consistently since then. What kept me watching was something that keeps me watching a lot of the shows that I stick with for a long time, and that was the ensemble. This show, more than even a lot of other ones, is just, it's like it says Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and yeah, there are one or two characters like Sky who are kind of a little bit more important, but it's always been very well rounded in having it feel like a group or a family or a circle of friends that I'm invested in everybody's storyline, even just to see where they go as people. Even if their relevance to the plot of the season wasn't particularly riveting, I'm still like, okay, well, how's their normal life? So I definitely kept watching for the ensemble. And like with other shows, I mean, there were some seasons where that was really the only thing keeping me on. Then there were other seasons where they hooked me right back in with the content, and I was raring to go and watching that season.
Honestly, don't remember how I came to watch it. Oh, yeah, I do remember. I think I was watching Arrow, and I saw an ad or something. Did Arrow come on before it? I don't know. But I think I saw it was an ad that I seen it on, an ad. And so I looked interesting. I think they were actually in their second season. So I went on, I think I waited or something, but I remember watching it on Netflix. So the first season, and then picking it up on TV. I enjoyed the first season a little bit, but it was really the second and third season was my favorite. I liked it. It was really good. But then it went down.
Well, I don't really remember what I said in our very first episode, but from my recollection, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was one of the shows that I knew was coming out. So if you know me, or you follow the website, you follow the blog, you follow the podcast, or you know about my love for TV, you know that I'm generally kind of keyed in to what's coming out in upcoming seasons on network TV and even beyond, and I knew Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was coming out. There were a couple of reasons why I keyed in onto Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. While I was not really immersed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe at that time, what I did know was that Joss Whedon was one of the co-creators on the show. And I'm a big Whedonite. I have watched every single series on television that he's ever created and love all of them, for better or for worse. And so Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. became an automatic yes. But I think I had seen Captain America by that point, and I think I had seen a couple of the Marvel movies, or at least parts of the movies, and was intrigued by the fact that they were bringing it to television. And I think it was partially because they brought it to television that I was inspired to go back through the MCU and watch the movies in order. I kept watching because I really enjoyed the ensemble of characters. It was a very slow build, and I wasn't sold on the show right away. I remember the first half of season 1 was quite hard to get into, and there was a little bit of a period of growing pains for the show where it was like they were trying to find their footing. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they were holding back because Marvel was about to release Captain America Winter Soldier, and there were plot points that they wanted to reveal. I know with one of the primary villains being Hydra, and they didn't want to drop that right away with the impending movie. And so that first half of that first season really turned a lot of people off. But I persevered, and I persevered because I really enjoy Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson. I really enjoy Ming-Na Wen as Agent May. And then I started to fall in love with all of the other characters in rapid succession. And what I really loved about the show was how quickly this group of actors and performers formed an ensemble where you really believe that they're family. And that's going to be one of the recurring themes that I talk about as we go through these questions. So talk about what you particularly like or love about the show.
I think it was cast very well just from the start. Everybody had fallen in love with Clark Gregg as Coulson during the movie, and it was really nice to see him back and give him more of a foothold in the Marvel lore. I've been just hopelessly in love with Chloe Bennett since episode 1, never stopped. And even, I don't know his name, and that makes me feel bad, but the guy who played Agent Ward.
Brett Dalton.
Yes, he I thought was really good. I'm sad that I haven't seen him in too much more since that show. And then, funnily enough, the Fitzsimmons, those actors, I know it's Ian DeCaster and
Elizabeth Henstridge.
Yes, they took a while. They were a slow burn for me to get invested, but then once you're invested in that ship, it's over. Like that's the ship you sail on. So I was really hooked just with all the actors that they kept in. I liked that they did the cameo with Sam Jackson and Kobe Smulders as well. I'm kind of glad they weren't staples in the show, though. I think that would have been too much presence. And as we saw, they needed to be able to branch off because eventually it stopped being same universe. But those are the things that kept me interested. The season 1's plot it was a little weird. That's one of the shows that it's hard for me to recommend because the first season is so crucial nowadays with binge culture. And the first half of season 1 is just you got to be real patient because they were waiting for Winter Soldier to drop so that they could drop their Hydra plot point. And then the second half of season 1, I feel like took off a lot quicker than that. But yeah.
It's hard for me to say that I love the show. I can't say that I love the show. I think Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of uneven and disjointed, and there's a reason why it has a loyal cult fan base, which I probably would consider myself one of, but there's also a reason why it's never been able to grow that fan base and why it's actually been battling the erosion of that fan base over a period of time. What I love about the show, at least in element essence, is the fact that it takes risks. It takes very gutsy risks that has actually pissed off its parent company in terms of its storytelling. It has a really great ensemble. I've already mentioned that's going to be a running theme. The ensemble of characters and actors playing the characters are delightful to watch. I enjoy each and every interaction, sense of rapport, sense of tit for tat that they have in the dialogue. I think the writers of the dialogue are very, very clever, and I think the Whedon brothers still have quite a hand in that. But mostly I like the action. It's an engaging set of episodes each season that tells a story arc that is encapsulated by the season, but still has bleed over into following seasons. And they've done really well by tracking their own continuity, even when the storylines haven't been that successful. And so I think there's a lot to like about the show. Is it always successful? Does it always pull off what it intends? No, it doesn't, but there's still a lot to like about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So talk about what you liked about the show at first.
I like the characters. I know I just realized why it started going down for me, and they got rid of a certain character, killed him off, whatever. But at first, I liked the characters, liked the storyline. I thought it was good. I really liked the interaction between the characters, the camaraderie they had with each other, and the bond they had, and everything made it interesting and stuff. And, there was a lot of drama in there. And with Daisy, she was in the beginning was my favorite because there was that, what is this character about? Like, what's she going to develop into? What is she, going to become and everything? So it was that unfolding because she was just coming into her powers and learning all of that. And that's what kept me, because I really got tied to her. I really liked that character.
Did you grow to love the show at any point? When and how long did the love last?
I feel like I didn't. I want to say I did love the show, but I don't know, maybe not, because it's not the same like Supernatural. It's not like, there's been highs and lows in many of the shows that I've liked, other series and stuff. With this, I really, really liked it, so I guess I didn't love it. So there you go. I guess I never really was in love with it. Maybe that's why it's easy for me to just leave.
She did a little click of her tongue and a wave of her hand on that for the listener. If this panel could continue, would you continue with it? Why or why not? Well, I would continue with it. A, because I produce this podcast. B, because I'm the moderator of the panel. And C, because I like the show. Yes, I would continue it. I just really enjoy the show, and I'm excited to talk about it, and I wish we were continuing to talk about it this time, because there's a lot in Season 6 that I think is worth discussing.
Yes, if the panel could continue, I would definitely stay on it. I think we were just low on numbers / investment kind of like out of the gate. So unfortunately, my first panel experience being the Once Upon a Time panel, where we were all just like fully like church every Sunday religious for that show. And this one was a bit of the flip side of that. But no, my love of talking about fictional worlds stems from comic books. So even though there are a lot of other lore that I'll gladly nerd out about with other people, it all stems from comic books and DC and Marvel. So this show was definitely, it's nearer to the core of my inner nerd universe. And so I'm always down to whatever you want to call it. Get nerdy, get geeky.
So why do you think, since you're persevering with the show, but others have not, and in fact, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been granted life because the network recognizes its very strong cult following, but it is a limited cult following. Why do you think people have wanted to jump the shark other than just being too busy to watch this particular TV show? What do you see as the problem, if any?
Personally, and with, once again, love for the show and the people on it, I think that sci-fi serials are a bit tough to sell, especially on primetime spots like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. started when. I definitely, if you said to me, hey, the hottest sci-fi show is going to be on ABC, that's not what I would think runs with their brand. I think generally a lot of the sci-fi shows that have taken off in recent years have been like on Sci-Fi or through various streaming services as original series, because it is a little bit hard. Like their nerd culture is a lot more out and about than it used to be, but there are still plenty of people that they're not turning on their TVs at 8 o'clock during the week expecting to see, oh, they've gone into the future of Earth now. and Earth has been half destroyed. Like, I can see why a lot of the, I guess, plot bucks and throws might be able to unseat some people, and they'll just go spend their time in other places. And there's just been a lot of really, really, really good TV in the last decade. So if people got more sucked into other shows, I don't blame them at all. There's a lot of really good stuff out there. I just watch a lot of things. So I'll watch those really good shows too. And then like, all right, I'm done. Oh, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is on Hulu. Let's go. Let's get caught back up. Let's see what we got. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't fault anyone for ditching the show at really any point. But as we've talked about in the past, once you watch a certain amount of something, it's just best to like see it through to the end, to at least pay homage to the people who worked on it and the work that they did. Because even if it's a 40-minute episode of bad TV, that still took hundreds of hours of different people's work. And that's something that as an actor I like to pay some respect to as well.
I think that Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. takes so many zigzaggy risks with its storytelling that you're either all in or it loses you. In truth, there are times when I have seriously considered whether or not I want to continue with the show, just because the story directions often lurch into new seasons with not a lot of explanation. There's usually a big cliffhanger or some really impossible plot point, and you just don't really know how they're going to develop that and continue it beyond where they've left off. But yet they always manage to do it. So every time I sit down to watch a new season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I'm consistently surprised by what they present. I may not always love how everything is executed in the end, but I'm increasingly surprised. And season 6 is one of those times. You know, at the end of season 5, spoiler, 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 you believe that Phil Coulson is dead. And technically he is dead. But Clark Gregg still comes back in season 6 and will be returning for season 7 to play different versions of the Phil Coulson original character. And they find new and interesting ways to do that. Now, whether they could do that ad infinitum in order to sustain the life of the show, I don't think so. So I think it's really good that they're capping it off at season 7. But I can see why people would want to jump the shark, especially if they like predictability or consistency in their TV show. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. does not have any of that, and sometimes the leaps may be a little bit too hard for people to internalize and to emotionally connect to be able to want to continue. So I don't blame them, and a lot of people have jumped the shark, but I'm still in it till the end. So when did it take a turn for the worst, and what didn't you like specifically?
When they got rid of, names will escape me. The one that had a connection with Daisy, the guy that, he went into.
Is it Ward you're talking about?
Yes, Ward. Thank you. I'm glad you can read mine. When they killed him off, even though when they kind of brought him back with the whole alien planet and he was the bad, I was all right with that, but it was pushing it. But that's really, so whatever, it was at season 4 when he left?
He left after season 3.
Oh, season 3, yeah.
3 full seasons and then he left.
Yeah, that's probably when it started to decline. Is that whole, after that whole, where they go to that planet and all of that stuff that went on there. So that, I guess that's season 3?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't think it was that far back. So I really only liked season 2 and 3, apparently.
So, since you're jumping the shark, what finally made you decide to jump the shark? What was the last straw?
Probably when they did they did a time jump, right? Did they do a time jump?
They ended in season 5. I don't know what happens in season 6, but in season 5 is when they ended up in space.
Yeah.
And that was in the future, but they also went back to the past by the end of season 5.
Oh, that's right. So, yeah, it was probably all of that. That was, the whole space thing is what I didn't like that. It was too confusing for me, I think. Like, I feel like, well, part of the problem is that when, especially with this show, I tend to I'm doing something else. So it's easier with this show to lose sight of it while I'm focusing on whatever else I'm doing instead. Most of the time, like with, we'll say Supernatural, usually I just watch Supernatural. I don't usually do, especially if it's really good, I will not do anything else. But when it's kind of boring to me, I'll focus on something else, do something else at the same time. So I feel like that probably happened a lot in there because I feel like there's like holes, like things missing. I get confused. And I just didn't be bothered to go back and watch and see if I did miss anything. But I don't know if that's just that season 5 or 6, if there was like things missing, like they didn't fully explain things, or if I missed it because I was doing something else.
What would you say to the show's creators or showrunners in light of this turn of events?
Why did you go with that storyline? In space, I don't know. It could always be that it's Marvel, right?
Yeah.
I'm more of a DC person. That might be part of it too. I just get more into that, but I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. I don't know how to explain it.
You don't know what you would say, other than why would
Yeah,
you?
I don't know what I would say to them other than like make better TV shows. That's not nice. You do great with the movies. Your TV shows are lacking. No.
Well,
No, I feel like that whole jumping into space, I don't know what they were trying to go, why they took it that way as far as that whole thing, but I feel like maybe they could have done it differently. I don't know.
So what did you hope or expect would happen instead?
I don't know. I don't really know that I have what I would want or would have liked them to have done. Yeah, I don't know. It's not a good answer. I'm really stuck with the whole thing. I see where they're kind of going with it. If they're going to use the whole, whatever that stuff was, the alien thing, the fluid. Tell you my words.
The alien being the fluid. Are you talking about the stuff that changes them into Inhumans?
Yes.
Okay.
If they're going to go that route, like, I don't know. I feel like they could have done it a little differently, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what I was hoping for. Captain America. They can bring him back. Because it was in the very beginning. Didn't they hint at doing that?
They didn't hint at bringing him on, but they did tie it into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they did have, obviously Coulson is in the Avengers, the first Avengers, right, and that sort of thing, but they did have like Lady Sif on from Thor.
Yeah.
They had an appearance of Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury. So they tied it in the MCU, and you got the sense that Cap and Thor and Iron Man and all of them were out there, but I don't think they ever intended to have them on the television show.
See, I think they should have. That's probably what I was missing from the whole show, is that they should have brought out more characters. Maybe they couldn't at the time because of the movies or whatever, or create different characters besides the ones that were in space.
You didn't like the Kree, is what you're telling me.
No, the Kree. Yeah, it was the Kree.
So do you think the shark jumpers are making a mistake? Why? If not, why do you forgive them?
Mixed bag here. So what I always hate is when there's a really bad section of a show and people drop off, and even I will usually drop off in the weekly watchings, but then catch up later. But then the show gets really good again, and I tell them that, but they don't want to get back onto it just because the taste is already sour in their mouth. So I think a lot of people either dropped off too early in this series, like season 1 and 2, which is before I think it hit its stride. I think 3 and 4 were probably among the stronger ones, or at least whatever their half arcs for the seasons were as well. Season 5, I think, was a bit of a lag as well. I think we lost a lot of people. I think that's where the panel kind of fell apart, was during/after season 5. But then season 6 got me very much hooked right back into it again. So I am a little bit sad. I'm just like, you were so close. You watched 5 seasons. If you just give it a little bit more time, you can get back into it. But at the same time, it's tough to get people through those hard to swallow sections and have them still maintain, especially if they've jumped off. What has it been, about a year and a half since we did the last panel podcast for this? Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's tough, because then there's a lot of stuff, people they've forgotten, plot points that beyond the start of the episode recap, they have no memory of. I mean, that happened to me myself during some of these. I'm like, yeah, that guy, he's a science person of some kind or other. Sure, bring him back on. Why not? But yeah, no, I thought season 6 was decently strong, and so it's a little bit sad. It's like, I know you all have to go your other television ways, but I wish you could have stayed on just for this little bit, because I think it was something valuable there.
That sounds like forgiveness.
You know, that's what Agent Coulson would want me to do, so that was for you, Phil.
Fair enough. I think Jen is making a mistake, and Jen, if you're listening, I'm really sorry. Jumping the shark at the second to last season doesn't seem to me to be awesome. I mean, you've already put in all this time. You've put in 6 years, and she admits in her interview that she watched at least part of season 6. May not remember it, but she watched it. It just seems really difficult for me for anybody that I know, or to believe that anybody I would know, because I can't do that. When I've made it that far and I know there's an end point, I'm going to see it through to the end. So I do think that Jen is making a mistake. Now, if you never got into the show, if you jumped the shark in season 1 because you were turned off by that first half season when things were really bumpy and you didn't really love the characters and you were kind of getting that Winter Soldier effect on the show, I probably don't blame those people, but I keep trying to convince them to revisit the show, because seasons 2 and 3 and 5 are really, really good. 4 is a little bit, I believe that's the Ghost Rider season, and that's hard to get into, but the other seasons of the show are very, very good. And even I think the second half of 4 is the framework, and I thought that was very good. So I think that shark jumpers who wait and jump the shark are making a mistake, because I think you're going to miss out. I think they're going to pull out all the stops and give us a really interesting season 7. But I also forgive you, because I can see why you might have made that decision along the way. Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. does not follow a traditional storytelling structure, but to me, that's one of its charms. Are you going to keep watching, even if at some point? Would you watch anything else by this creator, or did this show ruin your ability to appreciate other TV under the same creative umbrella? Well, first of all, yes, I am going to keep watching. As I just said at length, I am a completionist. I do not jump sharks at the second to last season. I want to see how this ends, even though I won't lie to you, the end of season 6, I really got into season 6. I thought the mystery of who the Phil Coulson lookalike was engaging. I thought this Izel kind of godlike creature was engaging. I thought Mac as the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D. was engaging. And I loved how everybody was sort of dealing with their grief over Coulson. And then, of course, my eternal favorite storyline is always Fitzsimmons, and I want to be able to see what happens with Fitzsimmons. But the end point of the season did give me a little bit of pause, because now it feels like they're reaching. They're putting Phil Coulson in an LMD that makes him feel not real. And somehow Fitzsimmons altered the timeline again, and we're dealing in parallel universes. And there was a lot of talk about a multiverse this season with the Deke character, who you can take or leave. I mean, I think he's funny in small doses, but he was definitely large dose in season 6. And he kept mentioning a multiverse, and that's clearly what they're developing for this 7th season, especially with the Chromicons and everything else going on. I'm a little bit leery about this trajectory for a final season, but I also trust the writers. They never fail to pull out all the stops. And to that end, I would, and I have. I mean, Joss Whedon is one of the creators. Jed Whedon, his brother, is another. And then Marissa Tangerowen, who's part of their team over there at the Marvel, created this show. Individually, I followed Joss from Buffy to Angel to Firefly to Dollhouse to this. I will continue to follow. If you created something for television tomorrow, I would watch it. And if these 3 created something, I probably would watch it, just because, again, I love the risks that they're taking, and I love the fact that they've not let anything slow them down. Even as their audience has shrunk, they've kind of really serviced the characters that they have, and they've made them engaging and interesting despite the unevenness of the storytelling. So, are you going to keep watching, even if it's at some point?
Yes, I mean, partly because they only have the one more season coming up, and Honestly, if they said they were renewed through 10, I'd still probably keep watching for all the reasons that I've said so far. But when there's only one season left, and it's something that's not abrupt, so it's not like a cancellation bear attack, it's something that the writers know about, the cast knows about, and something that they can prepare for, those are seasons that I especially get back into, and I'll catch up on a show that I'm 4 seasons behind on if it was something that I liked and I know is going to end, because the tying up of knots and just the poetic kind of love letter to the people who have supported the show for so long that a lot of final seasons can be is something that I personally really, really love. I put off watching the last 2 seasons of The Office after Steve Carell left because he was Steve Carell. Like, what was the show going to be? But when I heard that it was ending, I caught up with it and I finished it out. Very glad that I did. It's a beautiful ending to that show. And this show has already had like some pretty tearful goodbyes or reunions and stuff like that. So this is a show, especially with this ensemble and my love of ensembles in general and this ensemble in specific, I think it's going to be really, really good. I think it's going to be a great final paragraph for the story of this world, and I can't wait to see it.
Joss and Jed Whedon and a couple of other people created this show. Joss hasn't been a showrunner on it. Jed has, and the other people have. As I often ask during some of these, would you watch anything else by this creative team? Or did this show basically put you off of watching anything by this team?
Well, I had previously watched Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, and I'd watched... At the time that I started watching this show, I think I was only 3 or 4 seasons into watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I have since finished that series, another really great series. Yes. And so I think what I oh, are you a fan, Kylie? I would have never known. But yeah, I think I've seen as the trend between these 2 series from the Whedons that it is a little bit kind of like a slow burn. Season 1 of Buffy was not my favorite season of television I've ever watched. There were maybe 1 or 2 things only that kept me hanging on through it. Xander's sarcasm being one of them. Go Team Xander. But I think once a Whedon or 2 has the time to build the world that they've been thinking of to the point where we can kind of see what they've had in their head since the beginning, that's when I think it gets more fleshed out and different writing teams can even be brought on to tell great new stories in the world once they've fleshed them out. Like even Dr. Horrible, it's a 40-minute musical. That's all it was. But the world it takes place in, I'm still very intrigued about. I'd love a miniseries about that. If maybe we'll get it, maybe we won't. But so yeah, if I heard anything else about a TV series that Joss or Jed Whedon were working on, I definitely want to give it a look just to see if I kind of like see that same trend, if I can see these seedlings in the first few episodes of like, okay, I think this is actually going to turn into a pretty cool fandom.
The creators included the Whedon brothers, Joss and Jed, and some other folks that I've listed in our introductions. Would you watch anything else by these creators, or did this show ruin your ability to appreciate other TV under that same creative umbrella?
I believe I've already watched something they've done, haven't I? What else have they done? I'm sure I've watched it.
I don't know
Gosh.
As I sit down to this interview if they've done other things together, but obviously Joss Whedon has created Buffy and Angel and Firefly and
that's it. Yeah, I don't know about the other one, but Josh, I've seen that, all of it, I love him. And I've loved it, so I don't know how much say he had in it. Maybe he did the first couple of seasons.
I actually think Joss came up with the idea, but that's it. I don't think he participated.
Oh, you don't think
in
he
the
actually
show.
went? Yeah, I mean, I would probably watch it. I just think maybe it was just this show with, these characters and everything. But I would probably give, if they come up with any future projects or whatever, I would probably look at it. And if it interested me, I would watch it probably. I wouldn't let this show taint what they've written, Writers write different things, so I would give them a benefit of the doubt. Now, if I watch something that they wrote and it's, then I would go, okay, I'm done with you people. I gave you a second shot. You failed. You're gone.
# Jen's boundaries. Fair enough. Would you watch cast members in other projects, or have you already?
I would, yes to that one. As far as have I already, you're going to have to say his name again because I'm so bad at this. Ward?
Brett Dalton?
Yes, he was in this very just like sidelined, probably straight to DVD movie about an actor who's washed up and he goes back to his hometown and helps them produce a passion play. And I think it had Angela Johnson from Mad TV in it as the love interest. And it also had Shawn Michaels of WWF/E fame.
Okay.
And yeah, it was like this little Christian movie, and it was fun, but he did a good job in it, and that was the reason that I like gave it my time at all, was because he was in it. I don't know that I've seen any big announcements from any other cast members from the show. I mean, I'd watched Clark Gregg on The New Adventures of Old Christine back in the day, but beyond that, I don't think I've seen much from any of the other cast members. I can't even remember. I've been watching a lot of TV and a lot of movies in the past year, and I know that the actor who played, I think his name's Gabriel DeLuna, who played Ghost Rider in season 4 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He was in a movie that I saw recently. I just can't place which one because I had the AMC A-list, so I've been seeing a lot of stuff, and just in this quarantine, I've been watching a whole lot of television, so I can't quite place what he was in. But yeah, no, definitely there aren't any actors really in the show that left a bad taste in my mouth to where I'd say, oh, I don't want to watch it because that person's in it. But there are definitely a few, Clark Gregg, Chloe Bennett. Oh man, I can't remember what his name is that plays Mac. That actor, I think he did a great job.
Yeah, now I'm struggling for his name.
Oh, did I stump you? Did we get one?
I can't.
But yeah, no.
We'll put it in the notes, in the page notes.
Yeah, if he was doing anything, I'd love to see it, as well as either of the Fitzsimmons kids. Yeah, no, I think, and that's part of, I think, what makes an ensemble show so strong is that it's creating quote-unquote brand loyalty to these actors. And I think even if you're only a part of a really good ensemble for 7 seasons or 5 or maybe even 3, it carries through you with your career and helps bring things back later.
Yes.
Any of them specifically? All of them?
Probably all of them. The main cast, all of them, Fitz and Simmons. Yeah, I love them. Those are a couple of my favorite characters. Later on, I think Daisy was very early, and then later was Fitz and Simmons. But yeah, I definitely would, for sure. A couple of them I've already watched, a couple of movies that they've been in.
Remember what the movies were?
Oh, God. I'm having trouble remembering names and words. You're going to ask me.
Well, this is a recommendation moment.
No, there was one recently. It will take me forever. And when we're done, it'll come to me. I can't even think of her name. And she's a main character. The Asian lady.
Ming-Na Wen, who plays
It's
Agent
totally
May.
gone on me.
Agent May.
Yes, May.
Yeah.
That's...
She's
all
been in
day.
TV a long time. She was on ER and stuff.
Yeah.
But you watched a movie with her in it?
Yeah, I don't remember, though, what it was name.
She was also the voice of Mulan.
Yes. Yeah, I would definitely watch them and other things.
I don't know. Prior to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I have not seen any of the cast except for Ming-Na Wen, who was the voice of Mulan, and also was in ER, I think, for a minute. And I didn't really watch ER a lot, but I remember her being in it. And I've only seen Mulan like once. And Clark Gregg, I don't remember if I watched the first Avengers movie before I started watching this show or after. I loved him instantly there. If Clark Gregg appeared in something that was not Marvel, I probably would be shocked enough to want to watch it. I don't know if any of the other character actors entice me to want to follow them to other projects. For me, the strength of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. really comes down to the chemistry of this ensemble. It's this team, it's this sense of family that is cultivated with these characters, and the traumas and extraordinary circumstances they find themselves in. The fact that Coulson is a father figure to Daisy, is a lover now to May, or was, that May is kind of a mother figure and mentor to Daisy, that Daisy and Simmons have a sisterly-like relationship, that Fitz and Simmons are this beautiful, sweet, touching relationship that's been developing over the course of all 7 seasons now. And Mac and Yo-Yo are also, they're kind of the more mature relationship that isn't clouded by death, I guess. I don't know that I could pull these 7 apart and want to follow them elsewhere. If they all went as a group, I would watch it, but I don't know that I'm motivated to watch any individual actor as of yet. Now, if they appeared in something else and I recognize them as, oh, they were on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I would consider that a bonus. But I just think that the waters need to be tested a little bit more individually for each of these 7 or 8 people in order for me to say I would follow any of the cast members to other projects. Do you watch similar shows to Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., such as, and what would you recommend instead?
Yes, I watch all of whatever's on CW. I watch The Arrow and Flash and Supergirl.
Oh, you've come along now?
I have. Just recently I went back. I really wanted to watch the crossover. I had stopped watching on all the shows right before that happened. So I had to fun trying to see which TV show had the first part. And where do I go? I come across, Catwoman. I never watched Catwoman. So I had to go to the actual CW website and watch, I think, the first few episodes there. And then I got the rest of it somehow. It was on YouTube TV and I have it, but I have 3 episodes yet to watch of that. So I haven't. I just basically watched the crossover and then a couple episodes after that, and that was it. Catwoman doesn't, I don't know.
Do you mean Batwoman?
Batwoman. Did I say Catwoman?
You did.
Bat, cat, the rhyme, same thing? No, okay,
not
one
DC
flies.
Girl, they're not the same thing.
No.
Same universe.
Yes, Batwoman, thank you.
So would you recommend any of the CW shows over Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Oh, yeah. Flash. I'd even recommend Supergirl.
Oh.
And at first, I didn't really... Supergirl is always up and down, kind of. But I'm liking it now. But yeah, Arrow, I would definitely recommend over it. I've always liked those shows more than S.H.I.E.L.D. Since even when I started watching, like even into the second and third seasons that I actually liked of S.H.I.E.L.D., I would have still recommended those. Like if you like superheroes, you don't have any shows to watch, here's S.H.I.E.L.D. It's good.
All right.
That sounds really bad. That's not harsh.
Look, man, you're just being honest, and that's why we do these interviews.
I know.
So if you were to look at Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in simplified terms, what would you say are the top 3 pros, the top 3 good things about it, and what would you say are the bottom 3 cons or the worst 3 things about it?
I think the top 3 pros about it is the main characters that they do have in place are good. They're strong. Up until season, 5, 6, whatever it was, they went to space. It has a good, strong story, and the arcs for all of the characters and the whole story was good. Cons, I know I only gave you 2 pros. I'm trying to think of a third one. But I'm going to the cons, and the whole thing they're doing with Fitzsimmons, that whole thing, I don't know. I didn't like what they're doing with them.
In season 6?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah. What else did I not like? It seemed to be slow at times. Even like in season 1. Well, season 1 I thought was kind of slow. But yeah, it seemed like kind of slow from season to season. Like it wasn't consistent maybe. I guess I was looking like with Arrow or Flash, it leaves you hanging like, each pretty much. You might have a couple episodes where it's not as good or a season that wasn't as good as one other season, but there's always that I've got to watch it to see what happens. They keep you wanting more, whereas I feel like with S.H.I.E.L.D., I really didn't get that. I got it a little bit early on, but I feel like it never really left me wondering, what's going to happen or where are they going to go with this and that. So I guess that was on point. Let's see, what else?
So you've given 2 pros and 2 cons.
The characters are likable. Is that the same thing as being strong?
Yeah, you've hit on the characters pretty heavily.
Yeah, I guess I haven't hit on that. I don't know what else to hit on. I don't know what else. After I get done with this, I'll think of 50,000 things. No, I won't. 50 things that I hated. No, gosh, I really can't think of what else I didn't like, and I'm sure there's more.
Space.
Yeah.
You didn't like this.
Oh, yeah, I guess we had talked about that. Yeah, I really didn't like... the Kree, I felt like they spent a little too much time with them and that whole thing, maybe. That might have been another reason I didn't like it. I feel like they were in space a long time. They're still in there, right?
I don't know. You watched season 6.
Oh, well, yeah. Oh, you haven't watched it?
I haven't watched it yet.
Oh. Sorry. I thought you would watch. Yeah. I feel like they've been in space too long. I feel like they need to go back to Earth. I don't know. Or another planet. It doesn't have to be Earth. It could be anywhere. It could be, whatever. But I feel like they've just been in the same area too long.
Just so you're just not into space.
No, I actually am into space. But if you start the show out there, yeah, like Star Trek or Star Wars. I guess Star Wars doesn't start in, but never mind. Cut that out. No, but you know what I mean? Like, this was the last season, 2 seasons of it has been there. I don't know. I wanted to see more with the whole mutation, people turning into mutants and going that route and seeing what they develop with that and stuff. But
so your pros are the characters are strong. I don't even remember what the other pro was. Strong and likable.
Backstory is generally good.
And the cons were the space is too long, the pacing is uneven because it's slow at times.
Yeah.
And you don't like how they've treated the Fitzsimmons storyline.
Yeah. That's 3.
It's 3 cons, 2 pros.
And more cons than pros.
And I feel like we'd be pulling teeth to get you to get a 3rd pro.
Probably.
I'm a moderator, I can sense it.
I'm going to try and start with the negative, just because those are usually a little quicker to jump to people's minds. I think one of the things that definitely threw off a lot of the viewership was how people would say outlandish, I'll call it bold, some of their sci-fi plots were. They definitely got a little too ambitious, I think, for their particular platform with some of the story arcs, like especially a lot of the stuff with the Inhumans got weird, and sometimes you pick sci-fi that like doesn't match with your special effects budget, and so that generates a cheap looking product kind of a thing. That I definitely think was a negative. I think some of the seasons are stretched a little too far in terms of this is what we want the arc to be and this is how many episodes we have to fill, so there can be just kind of forgettable dialogue scenes. And that can kind of, especially with some of the season 1 stuff or when they had to bide their time for other MCU information drops, that can get very dry and just kind of like, I'm on my phone and this is in the background. And a third negative about the show. I mean, if you'd like a more complete list of negatives, feel free to check out our previous panel episodes about the show. But there were some tropes that they kind of got into, like somebody pointed out, and I'd never realized it until I think it was either you or Kristen pointed it out, that like there's always an evil version of May, and I was like, oh, there is always an evil version. Like, why? Was Ming Na Wen just like, I want to play a bad guy sometimes, guys, please? I don't know what that was, but there are some bits of repetition throughout it that you kind of have to accept lovingly as just like a trope rather than kind of getting drudged down by it. So yeah, those would be my negatives. As far as positives, I think I've said the word ensemble about 9,000 times already, so we'll say it 9,001. Very strong ensemble that I think people can, if you're someone who likes to form parasocial relationships with fictional characters, great show for it. I think eventually the special effects did catch up to what they were doing, because the portrayal of some of these suits and some of the superpowers that people have, just very, very good. Especially, I'd say seasons 5, 6, and hopefully 7. They don't lose any funding. But yeah, the special effects definitely kept up a lot, and I think it did end up being a good sci-fi show in terms of, I like that it highlighted kind of the background people. It kind of did what Gotham did in that it was like, this is Gotham City. You know who that's about. But we're not talking about him. We're talking about the cops. We're talking about the people who are doing a lot of this work every other day of the week when Batman's not doing stuff. That's a lot of what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was. It was like, you know how many dozens of heroes live in New York. Here are the other people, the boots on the ground. They're not just red shirts for crossover events. They have their own lives. They have their own dynamics. And here's one group of those people, and we hope that you can bond with them as much as you do with the big heroes on screen. And I personally did.
So your negatives were that some tropes, a little too stretchy in the long seasons with some tedious, maybe filler episodes, and then some bold ideas that maybe weren't quite as realized as they wanted them to be. And then the good parts were the ensemble itself, the strength of the ensemble, the fact that
special effects being pretty cool, and then how do I distill? I'm not a good distiller of points. What was my last point? I would say the aspect of a sci-fi world that it highlighted, that being the people on the sidelines.
Oh, right, because you were comparing it to Gotham, and that's where my brain short-circuited, because we just finished our Gotham series, and while that may have been the point at one point of the show, it didn't last, and we had very spicy opinions about that. So...
It didn't, but I think if they tried to make that show all about Kid Batman, wouldn't have gotten 2 seasons.
No.
Let alone 5.
No, agreed. No, what we're saying is your first intention was Jim Gordon, but you kind of left him behind. And then you brought in all these villains, but you ignored what was in the source material and just kind of distilled them down to one of their major characteristics. Like Hugo Strange, he's a mad scientist, so he will be the generic mad scientist for every time they needed a mad scientist.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair assessment. I would say I'm glad they didn't fall into that trap with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just because there are so many more. Like, if you look at Gotham City versus Marvel's New York City, way more heroes and villains in New York. So many different things they could have brought in. I'm glad that they mostly kind of stuck to their own guns and were like, we're going to generate our own characters. Like, yeah, we're using Hydra, but that means a lot of things. So we'll make our own individual characters with that. I mean, what they did in, I think it was the end of season 5 with General Talbot being infused with gravitonium, like, that was great. That was dope. I thought that was super cool. And, you know, I don't like Glenn Talbot because I like the Hulk and I like Bruce Banner. Glenn Talbot, not the nicest guy to either of those characters, but I like that actor from Heroes. So I was happy to see him get some screen time in that way. And that ties back to the point that I made about a strong ensemble leading you to support other work in the future. Shout out to everybody that was on Heroes at one point.
Maybe you'd like to be on that panel when we eventually do it.
Oh, have you not done Heroes at all?
We've not done Heroes at all. We have a few requests, but not enough to make it bubble yet.
That one will probably be spicy. I can give you my Micah's super quick 10-second podcast panel entire series wrap-up. Season 1, very good and intriguing. Season 2, awesome follow-up. Season 3, did that actually exist? Season 4, why does this actually exist? Heroes Reborn, pretty dang good.
Didn't watch that.
And that's, so yeah.
Okay.
We'll see if that future panel comes to fruition and if you guys agree or disagree.
I'm still keeping you in mind. The first off is the chemistry and easy engagement and enjoyability of the ensemble. I think the cast chemistry here is amazing. And they go meta sometimes, and the sense of humor is really good. And they're really the reason why I watch. The story is backdrop for how it affects this family-like relationship with the ensemble. And I think anybody who follows the show for any length of time can see that. The second is how many risks that this story takes. Again, not always successful, but I really admire the fact that this show has kind of thrown out the rule book and has gone and done whatever it's wanted to. It's been disowned by Marvel. It's been pulled back in by Marvel just because it's gone places that maybe it shouldn't have, but emotionally have paid off. In action have paid off. So I really, really enjoy the risk-taking in the storytelling. And then the third pro would be the action itself. The fight choreography is great. I love watching Agent May, Ming-Na Wen and her stunt double do fights. I love Henry Simmons, who plays Mac, doing fights. I think there's a lot of cool comic book, Marvel-related stuff that's going on. So visual effects, action, sort of the production value around the action and entertainment piece of this show is, if you're into the genre, that's why you watch, and I think it's top notch here. Cons. One of its worst qualities is that the storytelling is extremely disjointed and extremely lurching, and you're either in it or you're out of it, and I think it's alienated a lot of people over the way. I think it can be a pro, but oftentimes what happens is a season ends, there's a cliffhanger, the next season starts, and it doesn't start from where it left off, so it takes you a minute to get back into it. That was true of season 6, that was true of season 5, and I think that's liable to turn people off. So the disjointed storytelling, disjointed pacing would be one con. Another con is that some of the storytelling is melodrama. I know a lot of people like Daisy. I like Daisy. I like Chloe Bennett as Daisy. I think there's a lot of melodrama around Daisy, and I'm less interested in her character. I think there's occasionally melodrama around the romances, but I also think that that's matured over the time, so the melodrama is more evident earlier on. I think it gets better, but some people might be turned off by that. It depends on what you like with your superhero fix, and for me, it doesn't bother me. I, of course, moderate our DCTU series panel, and we just finished our reviews of Arrow, and that panel liked to talk about all of the soap opera and melodrama on Arrow. I think it's much worse on Arrow. I think it's not as bad on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I can see it being a con or a turnoff, and it can get a little tedious at times. And then the third con, I would say, is that the loss of a central villain has been a little bit weird for the show in the back half of the series, which isn't to say that the back half is bad, but I would say that seasons 2 and 3 were the strongest because Hydra / Agent Ward / stuff from other planets like the Kree were kind of all wrapped up in those storylines, and they were strong villain storylines. Season 4 was the framework, so that was, the villain was really Evil Fitz, and season 5 was the space storyline, and that had the Kree as the villain, but it told it from a different perspective, and I don't think it was as strong. I think actually one of the most rewarding aspects of the season 5 storyline was the fact that they were in the future and had to find their way back, and they kept getting involved in things that would potentially create time paradoxes. But the villain itself was sort of lame sauce, and I just hope that season 7, if the Chromicon hunters are the villain, I hope that they are told from a strong perspective, because I don't know or don't see how they could beat Izel even in season 6 or any of the villains that we've seen so far. So cons would be disjointed storytelling, some melodrama, and the fact that their villains have not been super strong in the back half, but that hasn't totally affected the storytelling. It just hasn't been as strong as the first half. Would I recommend this show? Yes, even if I jump the shark. Why? Or maybe, or in part, which parts, why, or no, why not? I have been trying to recommend this show. The most common reaction I get is, I tried and I stopped. I try to tell people go back and visit it, but some people are so turned off that they won't. I'm hoping that there are some people who are watching through the Marvel Cinematic Universe in my life right now, and I hope that maybe once they finish the series, they'll come back and talk with me and Micah for our final thoughts and or do a looking back over the whole series, because I feel like, or even maybe finish up our water cooler series, just because I feel like there are people who are discovering it and who are giving it a fairer shot than the people that I would have thought to have recommended it in my life, who did give it a shot, but maybe not enough of one because of whatever reasons they had. I know some people really base comic book accuracy on whether or not they're going to watch a comic book adaptation. And if you're looking for comic book accuracy, S.H.I.E.L.D. is not your show, because they've clearly deviated. And again, that's going to either appeal to a Marvel fan or it's not. I don't have the Marvel backdrop. I've talked about this on our Marvel's Defender series panel. I've talked about this in our DCTU series panel. I'm more of a DC girl by foundation, by origin, if you will, and don't really know a lot about Marvel, so walking into Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for me has been a mostly new experience, at least insofar as it is a companion to the MCU. And to that end, I tell people, if you're not into the MCU and you're not into the Marvel comics, it's still a great entertaining show, and I would hesitate to recommend it too far without seeing the final season, but at least the first 3 seasons, I highly recommend those. I think once you get past the first half of season 1, the story escalates quickly and is very strong, has a very legitimate villain, very fast-paced action, and those were full 22 episode seasons, so I do think it's worth the watch and do recommend it to people who like comic book adaptations. But I feel like I'm in a minority of people who do recommend it, and I guess I would put that caveat on it.
I would have trouble recommending anything in part to someone because I'm just such a start to finish person. My biggest example of this is that I was watching a marathon of like season 5 or 6 of Degrassi The Next Generation at a friend's house. It was my first Degrassi anything, and I said, this is pretty good. So I went to the library and I checked out Degrassi Junior High from the 1980s, and I watched from there up until all the stuff that I'd already seen. I'm very much a completionist, and I really like starting at point 1, so it's hard for me to recommend somebody do the opposite. But as far as recommending it just in general, I think it might be a little bit easier when the series is done, because there are a lot of people that's just their binge style. Like, a lot of people didn't watch Game of Thrones just because they wanted to wait till it was all done. There are some people that I think it'd be easier to sell them on a show that's already complete. So once Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is, that'll be a selling point for it. But I think it would depend. It's not something I would just drop into any conversation. I would have to really be feeling the person out and vibing with them, probably nerding out with them a lot about Marvel stuff and kind of seeing if they appreciate the little details and the little minutia. And then I'd say, if you haven't watched this show, there's some really, really good stuff in this show. So I want to recommend it to as many people as possible, but that many people is not always possible.
Would you recommend this show even despite jumping the shark? Why? Or would you recommend it in part, and which parts and why? Or would you not recommend it and why not?
I would probably recommend it if you don't have anything else to watch, and you like superheroes and you like a different kind of story with superheroes, then definitely I would check it out. We can check it out. I mean, the beginning is good. I would say that the kind of like I said with Arrow, I would recommend Arrow up into a certain point. And then I feel like all series that go on for a little while start to get a little bit, lose interest in them, but except for Supernatural. Did I tell you I rewatched the whole entire 15 seasons?
You did? Wow. I have not done that, but I suppose quarantine gives us time.
I'm obsessed with that show, I think. Anyway, I would probably recommend it. Just know that it's a little slow to start. It gets good, but then it kind of drops off. But we're all different. Somebody else might like it or more than I do. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how closely it follows the comic books or anything. I don't know if it follows the comic books at all. It doesn't sound like it does. But yeah, I would mean, if you don't have anything and you like this kind of thing, check it out. It's worth a check out for the first couple of seasons.
The first 3, I think I heard you say.
Yeah, first 3. Which is sad because I feel like I wanted to like it more than what I did. I think, and that's the whole issue I'm having with the show, is that I had hopes that, it would be better, and it just kind of fell down.
Last question. Jen, will you ever recover from this trauma?
I don't know. I think so, because I think part of the problem too for me is I have so many shows I'm currently watching and invested in, and it's just like this one doesn't really compare with those, so it's easier to let go. So I think I'm going to be okay. I don't think we're going to have any issues or traumas afterwards.
And then, final question. If by some miracle somebody came back out of the woodwork and wanted to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., whether old panelists or new panelists, would you be willing to return to the panel?
I'd absolutely be willing to return to the panel, because the one fandom we never talk about is the CPU fandom. And for anybody who's listening but has never partaken in any of the panels, I can tell you from firsthand experience over multiple shows, it's really fun to be able to do this with friends, even people you didn't know were friends until you started doing the podcast with them about shows that you really like. Because we all have a friend or two that we can talk to about shows. But I think you and the people you choose to moderate pick really good questions that they help me express opinions that I inherently knew, but I didn't articulately know. So, like, you'll pose a question, and I'll have an answer that's instant and ready, but something I'd never thought about before. So it really helps me flesh out why I love these shows, and that makes me love them even more. So I'm definitely always down if we get a random rambunctious group of teens who's like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that's the cool vintage show from when I was a kid. Who wants to talk about it? Old man Micah will talk about it.
Well, that's a wonderful answer to the final question. Thank you for such an expression, both for CPU
No
fandom
problem.
and the generations to come.
I do my best.
Well,
Hopefully the couch potato business will not be going out of style anytime soon.
finally, if interest is expressed in reviving this panel, would you be willing to return? Well, I would have to, because I produce this and I moderate it. But I hope, quite honestly, that there are people who turn back around and say they want to talk about the show. I think that there's a lot still left to talk about from season 6. And I think season 7 is going to be just as much of a palate teaser. And I think we're really going to want to dissect where the show goes in that final season, especially given where it's come from. So if you're out there and you want to talk about the show, please contact us. Of course, following the airing of season 7 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Micah and myself, as I'm not jumping the shark, will be back to discuss our final thoughts, hopefully. So stay tuned for that. Thanks.
And then there were two.
And then there were two. As you can see, one panelist, Jen of all people, is the one who jumped the shark on this show and has concluded that she's no longer interested in watching. But we carry a 3-person minimum for each panel, so in order for CPU to cover the show, at least one interested panelist would need to volunteer. Do you want to check in with our friends at the Lighthouse along with Micah and me, the remaining holdouts for panel coverage? Please, if you do, send us a message. How? Well, listen to the credits. Couch Potatoes Unite! Was produced by Back Pocket Productions, run by yours truly, the Chief Couch Potato, which is really another way of saying executively produced by me, Kylie Piette. My associate producers are Krista Pennington and Selene Rezmer. I edit this podcast, and our logo is by Rebecca Wallace. Our marketing graphic artist is Krista. Our theme song was written by Sarah Milbratz and sung by Sarah, Amy McDaniel, and Kelsey Rezmer. Kelsey played the keyboard, Ian McDonough played the bass, Christian Somerville played the guitar, and the whole kit and caboodle was engineered and produced by Kyle Aspinall and Christian. We hail from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Please, if you like what you hear, take the time to rate us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, or Google Play, or wherever you find your podcasts. Give us stars, give us comments, give us reviews. Let us know how we're doing. Send us a message. We might just read it on the podcast. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, what we should keep, what we should toss. You know how it goes. And if you have suggestions on shows we might consider, contact us at our website, couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, where we have a guest book, by email at couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com, or via our social media, Facebook, Twitter at CPU Podcast, and Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite. Though, of course, we add new and old shows to chat about around the water cooler all the time. We always have several more new episodes coming down the pike. Just listen to our intros, and if you miss old episodes or want to know in general what we cover, just find us. We are everywhere and searchable wherever you look for things on the internet. You can search for us, or you can subscribe at our website, our channels, our social media accounts. Stay up on our new events and episodes. Until the next time, all available seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are available to stream at Netflix, who does not show us enough appreciation for the repeated mention of their name. In the meantime, our Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. panel with this Shark Jumpers Anonymous feature has ended, at least for now. CPU will not return to cover the show around the water cooler unless you, listener, are interested in becoming a panelist yourself. If you are, and if you have a couple of friends who want to join you, contact us via social media or our email. Social media is Facebook, Twitter at CPU Podcast, Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, and email is couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com. For now, and in the meantime, and until next time, until next episode, new episodes are published every Wednesday. Keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned! Bye-bye.